Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I would like to go behind the scenes with you guys and talk to you about what we affectionately call in the business a fly date. And for those of you who don't already know the term, I guess the main difference between a fly date versus a regular tour is that on a regular tour, we're all on a bus together and we're going from city to city and playing gigs every night. Whereas a fly date is typically something where everybody comes from whatever city that they're living in and arrives all in the same city to play one gig together. Typically it's 3 days, travel day, gig day, travel day, as this particular one was. So I'd really like to get into the kinds of things I do to prepare for a gig like this in terms of how I practice and how I keep myself sharp. And I also want to talk a little bit about what it is that I bring with me for a one-off gig versus a tour, because it's a pretty different experience. So let's check it out. The way that I have it set up is you can see here that on the left-hand side of the screen, these are all my channels for microphones. So I'm using my full recording microphone setup for this. And I'm basically recording myself playing along with, in as many cases as possible, the live versions of what we do. If you look here, you can see that I have the loops and percussion and anything that is part of our playback rig. I actually have that stuff here. Unfortunately, I can't really play any of this because I don't want this video to be copyright stricken, but I will tell you that the live versions are available and they're out there, and they do slightly differ from the studio recordings. So of course, that's what I use to practice along with. So in the end, what I end up with is a way to not only practice this stuff, but to also listen back to myself in context with the music. And I feel like that's always been really helpful to me. And I do this on any gig where this kind of material is available to me, just so I can play along and hear myself in context. I don't want to just be playing the songs and then not have any idea if what I'm doing sounds any good. We are in Richmond, BC, this venue, which is about a 20-minute train ride to Maine, part of Vancouver. And this morning, I am heading to the venue significantly earlier than I normally would, just because for this gig, I'm playing a backline kit and I want to have plenty of time to dial it in tuning-wise and make sure everything is working the way that I want it to. My snare and cymbals will be there, but I definitely need to make sure that the toms and bass drum are set up in a way that makes me happy. And also I want to make sure that the few songs where I send a click out from my setup, that's all dialed in, and make sure that that's all going to Monitor World properly. And just in general, when these kind of situations come up, I like to not chance anything. And we haven't played for a while, so we're going to be taking the 2-hour sound check or so that we have to basically rehearse the entire set. And I don't want to be fiddling with my gear during that time. So something I learned from the people who mentored me is show up as early as you can for everything, for sessions, for gigs, and it doesn't matter what it is, just be the first person there. When you're the first person there, you will get ahead of so many issues that could arise, and you won't feel that anxiety or pressure of being on the clock already. So I'm gonna head over there right now. Just before we do that, let's have a quick look at what Richmond looks like. This is Richmond. It's really quite beautiful. This is a tram here that goes into mainland Vancouver. So let's start by talking about the main differences in the gear situation with a fly date versus a tour date. On these kinds of gigs, we typically bring some gear with us and also pick up gear from backline companies in the different cities that we go to. In my case, I'm a DW artist, so what is one of the most amazing parts of DW is that their tour support is probably the best in the business. I've been touring for many years and I've never had a problem getting exactly what I need, no matter where I've been, and I've been all over the world. And the kits are always great. They're really reliable. The hardware is excellent, and I've never had any problems whatsoever. This is a really nice backline kit. I believe this is Gold Sparkle in the DW world. 16 by 14, 14 by 10, 12 by 8, 10 by 8. And I've got my DW CRAVIOTTO with me, sort of in probably all of my live gigs. Even though the kit is backlined, the one thing that I always bring with me is my own snare drum. And in this case, I'm using this beautiful drum right here. This is my DW CRAVIOTTO snare drum. It's a 6.5 by 14 solid maple shell. It is built in the 90s when Johnny CRAVIOTTO was making shells for DW. And it's absolutely a beast of a snare drum. For Sarah's music, it covers the gamut in terms of the different styles. I'm playing brushes on it, I'm playing sticks, I'm sometimes laying in pretty hard, sometimes playing extremely soft, and it's absolutely perfect for all of that. It's super versatile. I also use, you might have seen this sitting on the drum, and this is the Snareweight Brass number 5 with the 70s inserts. And it sits on the drum like so, and I have found that it does something really special to not just the sound of the drum, but also the way it feels, the way the stick feels when it lays into the drum is unlike anything else I've ever used, so I highly recommend. Another thing I want to mention on this snare, and I've been really enjoying these, Canopus calls this bolt tight. So it's 2 leather pieces, sandwiching the regular metal washer, and then between that and this guy right here, which is called Red Lock, which threads down, I don't have to use regular lug locks anymore, which I'm absolutely in love with, and I can still spin and tune as much as I need to without having to worry about taking lug locks on and off or trying to tune with lug locks on. As far as cymbals go, I'm a Sabian artist, and I have a duplicate set of exactly what I use on tour that lives in the storage area with all of Sarah's gear that travels from her cartage and storage area to these gigs that we do. So I never have to worry about what cymbals I'm gonna get because I always have that exact set there with me every time. And then this is our set of Sabian cymbals, 20-inch Zen China, 20-inch complex thin crash, 23-inch complex medium ride, 20-inch complex thin, and 15-inch artisan hats. I also always bring my stick bag. So in there I have sort of the expected things that you would have, like my favorite stick, which is the Vic Firth Hickory 5A. I also travel with these, which are a really important part of this gig that I'm doing. And these kind of cover all of the songs that you would think have brushes or something other than a stick. And they are very special. They're made by a guy named Dave Deming. They're called Dem'sticks. These are the Zebra 50s, and they really have a beautiful feel, and they're absolutely by far the best sounding versions of these kinds of sticks I've ever played. Another item I always travel with, and I tend to just throw this right into my suitcase, is my Kick Pro pillow. So in case you're not familiar with these, they are a weighted pillow, and they, for whatever reason, make the bass drum sound better than I've ever heard. So the way I look at it is it's become an essential piece of gear for me. It goes everywhere with me. Another thing I like to bring is a bass drum beater. Lately it's been this DRAGONFLY leather beater. I find that it just pulls a certain kind of tone out of the drums that I'm really into these days, so it's always with me. Another thing that I always have with me is what I call my bag of muffling. So there are certain situations, certain theaters, certain venues where a little bit more dampening might be necessary. So I typically bring these Nelson Drum Shop rags. Shout out to Nelson. These can be rolled up and just sort of set on the drum, and I typically use these little paper clip things that you might find at any stationery store and keep them on the drums. And that's for pretty extreme situations. Most of the rest of the time, I'm using the other kinds of snare weights that are available. So in this case, I have several of the M1s with me, which are the small guys, and the M80s, which are the slightly larger guys. So the M1s will go on higher toms, and the M80s will go on the floor toms. This kit is sounding pretty good where I'm leaving the top 3 toms without anything because they have clear emperors, but this one is making a huge difference for the floor tom. So actually, you know what, without, now with, pretty big difference. It's gonna help control for PA and front of house. And then the snare weight, which is a really big part of the snare sound here. With one 70s wing, there's an option for another one, but I like to leave it a little bit more live. I always carry a proper DW hi-hat clutch in case the one that comes with the backline kit isn't happening. And this is just a regular DW standard clutch. They're very reliable. I always request a Ludwig Superphonic, Black Beauty, Copperphonic, whatever they have, because all backline companies have a 6.5 Ludwig drum, and it's the best backup that I can think of. So in this case, we got a nice new Black Beauty. It sounds great. Tune it up, get it to match the pitch of the main snare that I bring with me, just in case something happens to that during the show. Backup pedal, always, same reason. Another essential piece of gear that is always with me is a road case that I have, which contains a mixer and some other cabling that I need in order to set up a click track that I use for a few songs that I use for myself and that I also send to the band. And then I also use that mixer to take in tracks from our playback rig, which include loops and percussion things that I might be playing along with in certain tracks, and also the click that comes from that world. So this mixer box actually becomes really crucial for me because it's a way for me to control the levels of, especially the click, so that I can make sure that I always hear it, depending on what's going on around me. If the volume of the band is slightly changing, then I want to be able to just reach down myself and adjust the volume instead of always having to reach over to get a hold of our fantastic monitor engineer. I have set up my monitoring rig where on these 2 channels here, I receive a stereo mix from Monitor World, which is our man Martin right over here. And that is everything but tracks that are part of our playback rig for some songs, and that comes in here, so I can control tracks and clicks separately. And then on one more channel, which is over here, I feed everybody in the band a click for a couple of songs. One more thing that I generally carry with me to almost every gig that I go to, and I think at this point I might lose some of you because up to now it's probably been mostly things that I think the majority of people would sit there and go like, that seems pretty reasonable to bring to a gig. But I'm going to talk to you now about the coffee rig I bring with me, and this is obviously totally off topic, so feel free to skip over this section altogether if you want to. So first of all, collapsible kettle. So this is a collapsible, I believe this is made out of silicone, and it's a kettle, and it folds into this nice little package. Throw it in your bag, you're ready to go. Next part, the AeroPress. Probably I'm assuming the most common travel coffee rig that people use is an AeroPress. A hand grinder. This is a decent one. It's actually the one I use at home as well, and I just take it back and forth with me. And then finally, an actual coffee canister, air-sealed coffee canister, because I like to bring whole beans with me. I like to grind it fresh with the grinder and use some kind of nice water. And that's my daily ritual. As you can probably imagine, coordinating all of this gear and putting it all together and getting it all ready to go is a very challenging task. And I didn't want to forget to shout out our amazing crew that we have on the Sarah McLachlan gig. Everybody involved is the best at what they do, and everybody is there to make this thing happen, and we're all a team and we all work really well together. Honestly, these shows wouldn't come off half as well as they do without this amazing crew that we have.
So that's what goes on at a Sarah McLachlan fly date. That's a look behind the curtain to see what we do. I'd like to know what you guys think. What do you travel with when you do these kinds of gigs? What are your essential things to bring with you? Leave a comment below. Talk to us about what you like to do, and let's keep the dialogue open. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.